So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I found to work really well for me and in the business, and hopefully it will help you in your entry. Feel free along the way to ask questions. I'm not stuck to my slides, and let's just make it more of a conversation. So I think that there's two sides of branding that would help you in your entry. One is design. So we'll go into that first. I think the most important are the 3 C's: color, contrast, and call. Call would be your action. So under color, it's important that you know that color conveys different feelings or messages. So silver, sleek and tech; blue, cool and calm, and you can kind of go down the rest of them. These are a little bit more specific to design, but if you've never been around that type of thing, it's important to keep that in mind for your overall message. Contrast is important because it will draw your audience's eyes. Choose complementary colors, which is the opposites on the color wheel. So if you wanted to go, if you knew that your logo color was going to be a magenta, you'd go the opposite for your complement, which would be a green. Just basic kind of color information. But it really does work. It draws people's eyes directly to what you need. Also, complementary and contrasting ideas. So space, like you're not used to seeing, fill the space, go high, go low. If there's interaction, that's something that people aren't really used to, so it's a bit of a contrast, and it draws people's attention. Tone, like we talked about before, as it relates to color. And then size. Again, large is really commanding. You don't want to have a poster with teeny tiny type. Call. So find your tagline, your motto, or your mandatory, the purpose of your product. Who does it affect? Does it affect college students? Does it affect the business professional? It's important that you know in the beginning, as you're branding your product, who your target audience is. And then kind of a thing that I do is, what would I want my users to tell their friends? It makes it a more personal search, instead of let me come up with a tagline that's catchy and kind of gimmicky, something that would be relatable to people, and knowing your audience.
My apologies.
Hey. Go on. It's important to know your audience. It could be on each end of the spectrum, so you don't want to gear your colors and your tone and your size to kids if the opposite is what you need it to appeal to. The next thing under design is tell your story. Connect with your audience on a personal level. It helps to relate your product and your idea to tell the story, to connect what brought you to this, what was the need that you saw outstanding. Because people on the street, they realize that you've been working on this, but what drew you to it in the first place? Because this is the first time they're learning about it. What talents brought each member of the group together? So what strengths did you see a need for your idea? The solution, the problem, and then how can the user use it? So this is just kind of telling the story of where you started from, because again, I've gone to a couple of the showcases and I was automatically pitched an idea, but I had no grasp of, okay, where did this start? Why would I use it? It was just like, here's my idea. And it was kind of jarring because I needed to know the reasons for why the person was bringing this idea to us. Yeah?
How would you use this exercise to start with design? Like you mentioned showcases, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So I guess a lot of the pitchers were assuming that you get the feel of the story or the good.
Right.
Which they obviously failed at, but what would you do? What would you have done differently?
Well, knowing your audience. So say your booth is about bubblegum. So you know that your audience generally are younger people. So if you have pictures, it might be pictures of younger people to attract someone that wanted to look at someone their own age. For color, it might be, again, the tone of the pinks or In a handout, you might connect the history of how you decided to sell bubblegum. You know, there's not enough people that do it, or you think yours are better because they taste better. So giving that background, like in a handout, gives a person the whole story of your product. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So these are really specific to the audience. We know that in the dog food one, I think it's dog food, we know the most popular dog is a yellow, larger dog. It seems to be the most popular, so we know that a large majority of people might be drawn to this booth versus we know that not a lot of dogs that are black are adopted, hence a lot of the black dogs are in shelters, that kind of thing. So the larger group of people would be drawn to a poster with a popular dog. And then again with the runner, we don't see a face, so it would be easy for the viewer to put themselves on that body, to become personal with that product. Whereas if we saw a man, we can't even really tell, I think it's a man, but if we saw a man and a woman was looking at it, they might not be as interested. Yeah, I think so. But it's kind of vague. We want it to be relatable to the person in the audience that you're targeting. Mm-hmm.
Recently, better to have sort of an anonymous symbol for people to actually think they can substitute themselves with,
Yeah.
as opposed to something that they like themselves to be. Like I saw like a gentleman was steroid with a jumping on amazing pecs. Like that's what I was amazing pecs. Right.
Right.
I mean, that's not as effective as something that's
more vague. Right. Because maybe it's unattainable. Maybe it's something that they talk themselves out of and they say, well, I could never get there, or it will take too long. It's more in the far off future. Whereas if you were showing at a bodybuilding contest or a competition, it would make sense because that's the target audience that you're surrounding yourself with.
For the general, like it's totally unrelated product, right? Like you're showcasing a sports watch.
Right.
That doesn't really rely on how built you are. It's better to just go with a very neutral.
I think so. Under design also is user experience. This is every detail that connects the user to the 3 C's we talked about: color, contrast, and call. You want to, the goal would be to envelop the viewer, the reader, the tester in your product's brand. Either to find a way to engage the audience or let them interact with your product, or again, envelop them in your branding. So the first two are ways, shows ways that you can bring the audience to test out or try your product: iPads, a laptop, some kind of touch screen. Yeah. Screenshots are good. I think as long as, if there's a lot of detail, I would make them big so that someone doesn't have to come in and look too close, because they're probably going to get a lot of people to look at your booth, hopefully. And the easier it is for them to look at and read and kind of absorb, I would say the better. And then the third one is a brand that was recently launched that, again, envelops you with the brand. You're surrounded by the product, a lifestyle, coloring, everything is surrounding you. With minimal cost to create some kind of display like this. It's really just banners and large imagery.
Do you know how much flexibility the contestants have in the booth? Is it a space designation, or is it a table and it must be a booth?
Yeah, actually I can tell you those details. It's in the guide as well. So you have an 8x8 square. And you have to fit in that 8x8 square. Stepping outside of that starts to encroach on somebody else's space, and we can't have that. You can't hang anything on the ceiling or on the walls, or stick anything to the floor, because that's just offensive to our host venue. And we will provide for you table and chairs, but you don't have to use them. In fact, we're going to provide for you table chairs and a table skirt, which is plastic also.
Freestanding.
Freestanding, right.
Can it go as tall as it wants to?
We typically recommend to do 8 feet in height so that you don't run the danger of, hitting something. I can tell you that the hole that we're in is much taller than that. So 8 feet, you don't have, the last event that I was in there for was for a Christmas tree event, and there were 30-foot Christmas trees in it. So you don't run that danger. Do keep in mind though that you're the one setting this up, and you're the one tearing this down after about a 12-hour day. So I don't know if you want a 30-foot.
Well, the other thing to consider too is if you're going to show your product at other conventions or other areas, usually 8 foot is a regulation, so then you can use your items again.
Right.
So.
Slightly off topic, how are the locations assigned?
Those we do, so we don't split them up by in progress versus zero code. We do it strictly by interest. So if we think that something is stronger than something else, we probably will put those in the corners to get traffic flow through those areas. And then we assign everything else. So if we know that we have 2 teams, or one team that has 2 projects, obviously we put those next to each other so they can coordinate better. And so it's laid out that way.
So that room is about 8 by 8.
That rug is 8 by 6 on that thing. I can tell you on this slide right here, the picture on the left was from our very first year. Second year. Thank you. Second year. That was one of our contestants or our competitors, and in fact, in back, if you can look to the piece of, it looks like a tin almost. That was Austin's booth. That's Austin's booth. And then the picture on the far right, also for Nature's Joy, that booth right there. She's right. It was fairly low cost. A couple of banners, some lighting, large pictures, good branding, and Tessa created that, which she didn't fail to mention.
Just an example.
Why'd you choose that from the lighting? And what kind of lighting is that? Is it diffused somehow? Diffused?
It's just attached on top of the banner.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of the banners that if you order them from a vendor, they'll supply that as well.
Which if you go to vistaprint.com, you need to send them higher resolution.
Yes.
That's like a must-have. You have to send them high resolution images. But Vistaprint will do stuff like this for you, like $70 or something. We can get local vendors
Right.
to do very similar costs. So, shop around a little bit.
Right, and they're really they're portable, so they snap off and they condense into like.
Stands?
They come with stands.
Pardon?
Where are we at?
We're going to be in the Pacific Southwest building downtown, or sometimes it's called the security base building because that's what's around the top. If you go downtown and you look for the tallest building, that's the building. We'll be in the ballroom.
It's important that you do some research if you care about the brand that you're putting out there. See what else is out there, see what's popular, see what the trends are, and definitely climb out of your box. If you do something, I think Irma talked about earlier today, that she drove her Mini Cooper into a trade show or convention, and I'm sure it caused a lot of stir because it was totally out of the norm. It's not what people expected, and that's where you'll get your audience, is thinking differently. This is an example that I thought was great for climbing out of your comfort zone. Also, when you're gaining advice on what to do or how things look or the brand, remember that the people that you ask are going to affect what you get back. So if your target audience is teenagers, it's probably not a good idea to ask your grandma what she thinks, because you'll get an opinion that matters but might not matter in your product. You could hire a designer. That'd be easy.
Are there any around?
I don't know, they're pretty busy. So the second half of it is execution. So now that we know a little bit about design and aesthetics, let's go into the execution. Your booth. There are cheap options for big impact. We talked a little bit about it. Curtains, are very inexpensive, and they give you kind of big bang for your buck. It's a big amount of color. They're long. You can put them together. You can get them at Walmart, Target. You can come up with a stand, or I'm sure if you go online, there are things that you can attach it to. There are online rentals that do booth rentals. A table, I didn't know that you guys provide the table, so that's a nice cost that you don't have to think about if you need a table. You can rent a TV or bring in your own monitor, something that relates to your product. I wouldn't necessarily bring in a TV or a monitor if it's not something that your audience would use to understand your product. If it's just because you like monitors or you want some kind of TV flashiness, I wouldn't recommend it, but if it relates to your product and you need to show the steps to purchasing a chair, it would be important to show a slide or have some kind of imagery. Retractable banners on the high end, they're about $350. That's usually like a local vendor, but like Arms was saying, they do come less expensive. One large banner that you saw in the previous slide, let's look at these. The one in the back on the far right, that's a large pistachio nut. That one is approximately $1,200 to $1,500, and again, that's a local vendor. So online, it is possible to purchase them for less, but I wanted to give you a ballpark. So when you create a banner or a poster or anything, it's really important that your logo is towards the top of any kind of large format. You're going to have people walking through the event, and so you want to be able to see your brand above all of the people and the crowd. As people come to your booth and start reading information, they will scan the banner, but that name recognition is probably the most important. And then below, I just show some examples of use of curtains with color and a table banner with the table. It does work. It's low cost, but it does work. You could also build your own. This is an example of one that was built and not ordered. And it kind of helps with thinking outside the box, thinking of things that haven't been done yet. Less common. It's important that you have something supporting the information that you're showing either on large format or on a monitor or a video. Give people something. Chances are they'll read it more after the fact, after talking to you, and it'll kind of connect the dots in their head to explain your product more. In your handouts or your takeaways, it's important to show the call, the story, the experience, and the contact. These, again, help kind of connect the dots to explain your product after the fact. These are just examples of good takeaways. One's a handout, and one is just a flash drive. It's my opinion that a trifold brochure is a little bit overdone. It's almost like junk mail. You've seen so many of them. You probably won't read through it. It's also a large area with probably too much information. You're going to lose the audience's attention pretty fast. So I would suggest a single handout, postcard, something that's quick and concise. It'll also save you a little bit of money. Exactly.
You're not doing it simply to get your logo on there.
No, but you want your audience to use what you're giving them. So if it's a sticker, it depends on if they'll stick it on their laptop. If it's, like I saw, I'm trying to think, a bag, they'll probably use it for the event, but after that, will they use it? Maybe not. So they may not remember your product. Whereas a flash drive, your target audience is people that are interested in tech and interested. So that's why I think it would almost be worth it, because they would continue to use it. Other people would see it. It would pass on your name a little bit.
So like with flash drives, CDs, and those kind of things, the assumption you're going to have something on there for them.
Right. Right.
Yes. Yeah, if you where
Right.
you get the benefit. But people typically, these days at least, because flash drives are so prevalent, they grab them as throwaways. You know, so they grab them because because buying them is, why would you, you know?
And the other thing on the handout, your logo should be probably the largest because that's the purpose of the showcase, is to get people to learn more, to go to your website. It's not a lot of information, as you can see on this one. It kind of tells you briefly what the app is about, gives you a general picture, again, not terribly specific. I would say less is more.
With that, you had a real nice graphic.
Mhm.
QR code, that would take care of
That would be enough.
Can you think of that logo, the QR or something?
I tend to like it. I think I like things that are,
Did you design it?
no. No.
Looking for bias?
No. I think logos that are minimal in font variation, so it's like the same font that's thick and thin, I think are stronger than if they had just a ton of fonts and a ton of graphics. It seems concise and simple. I like it.
You don't think that could possibly be mistaken for a QR code rather than the logo itself?
Could be. But it's a different color. It's got a gradient.
Just real quickly on the
Sure.
flyer like that,
Yeah.
just one quick, like, what's your, how they contact you, you know,
Yes.
Twitter, Facebook, all
Yes.
that, all that.
Yeah, as concise, again, envelop your audience as concise as you can be. If they took that flyer away and they didn't have anyone to ask questions, they could get enough information for themselves.